I guess the thing that I wish people could see is maybe what I saw on that first day. It was this beautiful fall day, a little bit of, coolness in the air. And it's just such a beautiful way to start the morning. The kids are coming. Most of them, I think, are driven by their parents. They come one at a time. There isn't this great rush at the beginning of the day. A lot of the kids come early because they want to make use of the playground. And there's some teachers standing out there. And it's just everything you would want. I mean, the teachers are letting the kids play, but answering questions that they have, talking to parents. But otherwise, it's just a very quiet thing. The teachers then also talking to themselves. And I think that's kind of the thing that I'd like people to see about this school. It's just very comfortable in its own skin. Nobody's in a rush. Sort of at the end of the day, there isn't sort of the bell goes and everybody has to leave. The kids can stay, and that's all, before and after care is taken care of with tuition. That's a great plus for parents. But it's also nice that kids can ease into the day and ease out of the day, and that they just have a sense that the space is theirs, and again, they feel very comfortable within it. With any school, it's important to look beyond kind of the building. No school is a building, and any good educator will tell you that. Every school is a community of people, a community of interest, a community of aspiration. And I think when people visit Prestige, I hope they spend enough time to see that that's what's happening there. This really is a community. It shares, there are certain things within it that are shared, certain language communities there that you don't find at other schools, but also a community of aspiration, people who share an idea of how it is that we learn and how it is that I want to learn. And that's what the school is ultimately about. It's doing it very well. I think every school has an origin story. And I wish that people knew more about these things when they look at a school. That's never the question that they're asking, what is your origin story? But I really think they should. We think of schools as just there's a school. But every school is in the midst of its life. It's at some point in its life. It's either developing or it's developed or whatever. And but it's schools are always changing and growing. And I think, but why they began, I think says a lot about what the school is today. And in this case, it was founded by Olga and her parents. They had recently immigrated from Ukraine. And in Ukraine, Olga's parents had been educators, at a very, very high level. Her mother was on the National Board of Education. Her father was a teacher. And not only that, but they had a lot of passion about education and how to go about it. They had ideas about how people can learn and how they should learn, but also ideas about what's exciting. And so for Olga's father, it was math. Math is something that really animated him. And it wasn't just that he wanted to teach math. He really felt and feels that math is something worth being excited about. And that doesn't mean we're going to jump up and down and have confetti going all over the place doing math. But it's just that he feels that with the right introduction, students will be interested in math for all sorts of reasons, just for working with numbers, but also gaining a sense of mastery over something. That says something if you master some aspect of math, that you have a sense of accomplishment. And so that's part of it too. And I think that's something that he wanted to deliver to his students, to show them what's interesting about math and to show them to gain that sense of accomplishment for them as well. So when they came, so that was their origin story. They came from Ukraine and saw what was happening here. They're always thinking about education. And they thought some things could be done better. And initially it was math and also then languages. And so they started a tutorial program that certainly gained a lot of popularity. And as Olga says, the intention was never to have a big school. It was never even to have a school at all. The intention was just to do all those things which I just said, to share their insights into math, to help kids learn it and get interested in it and become successful and have a sense of mastery and all these other things. So the tutorial program began there, and again it just grew, and then it grew to include other things. Language was one of them because they're native Russian speakers. There were a lot of people who were interested in that, so people gravitated to that, so they taught Russian and they taught other languages as well. You know, you would think that this is a school where it is very competitive, and I mentioned that you know, there are these kind of things on the wall, people who have in the hallway, people who have succeeded at different events, different maybe math competitions or whatever. But it really ultimately isn't a competitive school. It really is about a bunch of people lifting each other up. And it's one of those places where they talk about when you play tennis against somebody who's a better tennis player than you, it lifts your game. And I think that's really at the core of what Prestige is doing. Kids are happy to see that some kids are succeeding exceptionally well in math competitions. And even if they take part in those things, and they do, you'd be amazed at how many students take part in math competitions. But as Olga told me, it's more about the participation within it. And I think it's true, and she said this, that kids aren't so bothered if they don't place in the top 10. It's about having that experience and participating in something that your friends and your peers are participating in as well. So it's more about the shared experience. And I think she's clear, and I think the teachers within the school are clear that, you know, not everybody is going to be in the top 10 of everything, that everybody has their kind of place to shine, and the school is keen to bring those things forward and to let kids know that, yeah, we all do have our own strengths and talents, and we all shine in our own ways. And so, yeah, it doesn't feel like a competitive environment, and I think the kids would second that. In fact, I think they do stay friends, and I think there's a real diversity within the student population, and just about where it is. I mean, it feels like a neighborhood school, just given where it is. It's down sort of a cul-de-sac, which is really nice because there isn't sort of, you know, traffic streaming by all times of the day. And given where it is in the city, I mean, it is a busy area of the city, but they found this little corner of it that feels nicely out of the way, and it's a very nice location. But that said, their catchment area is surprisingly large. Like, kids do come from all over the city to attend the school. So it isn't a neighborhood school in that sense. But so given the diversity within the population, I think a lot of kids arrive from different cultural experiences, from different academic experiences, and from different areas of the city. But they do really kind of come to know each other as great friends, maybe surprisingly so in some cases. And they do report that as they go on, they stay in touch with these people. I think the alumni that I spoke to were just absolutely confident. And there are lots of reasons for that. One of them was a student who came from overseas. She came from Ukraine. The school does attract, and it's not it's not a Russian school. You know, not all kids take Russian, but given that they offer Russian, it certainly does attract people who are interested in that as well. It should. I mean, there are not a lot of schools that can offer this sort of level of language instruction in Russian. And so students come for all different reasons. Some of them come because they have a cultural heritage that they'd like to participate within. But in some instances, they're kids from the Ukraine or elsewhere who really they gain a lot of confidence from learning in an environment where if they need to, they can go off at the end of the day and say, I didn't really understand this, and they can have it explained to them in Russian. And I think they really appreciated that. So one woman that I talked to who's gone on to university, she admitted she came in quite shy. She was an immigrant, but the school really gave her a lot of confidence and helped her along. She loved the language aspect of it, but she also loved that these people really knew where she was coming from. And in fact, there were 2 other students that were from her same village in Ukraine, which she couldn't really explain as to why that was the case. It just happened. But it was really very nice. And so for those students, it's very comfortable, and they go on to be very confident at the post-secondary level. No, it really is a community, and the community involves the parents. And I think when you talk to a parent, we talk to parents about a school, often they'll refer to it as the school or something, but in this case, they really do refer to it as our school. And so the families that go there see it as an extension of who they are. And that can happen in all sorts of ways. Parents are very welcome to be involved in the life of the school. Communication is absolutely open and free. I mean, these people have each other's cell phone numbers, email. It's that kind of school that if you have any issue at all, you call Yana, and first of all, you know her and she knows you. And you've had conversations before. And so it's just very easy to talk about anything that comes up, a lot of communication between parents and the school. But again, just parents are welcome into the school at any time. And you do see them around in the morning, parents are dropping off and casually speaking with the instructors, to being involved in other ways, to being a volunteer around some of the events. But again, the tutorial method, I think, is something that we think of as sort of remediation. But that's not what tutorial really is. I mean, you look back and think, where did this kind of come about? It's a way of delivering the curriculum, just like there are other ways of delivering curriculum, sort of like hands-on experiential learning is one way, and that's something, Discovery Math is something that obviously has entered the Ontario curriculum, and that's kind of where we are now. But tutorial is something that was developed in Cambridge and Oxford, and it's something that still kind of defines their programs. So these very august sort of schools said, what could we be doing differently? And one of the things they thought was, rather than just having a bunch of kids in a room and we all start at the first page of the textbook and work through it, let's have a smaller group of kids and say, well, what do you know? And then start at where their knowledge sort of leaves off. And also start with the curiosities that they bring in. What are you curious about? And how can we connect that to what we're learning in these other different fields? And so then that's the tutorial method that her father was really adopting here. It wasn't about like, oh, you're struggling a bit in math, let's see if we can get your bootstraps up. It was more like, okay, what do you know? And I'm going to take you to the next step, whether or not that's within your grade level. But let's keep it moving and let's learn in your way. And the other aspect about it is like it's really student-centered. A lot of schools talk about being student-centered. Well, this school kind of takes that and really runs with it. It really is about saying, what does this kid need to learn? So if you have a child in front of you, and Olga says this is something that she really learned from her father, viewing her father's absolute patience of saying, let's work through this, and well, they don't understand it. So he'll explain it, and they don't understand it. Well, instead of just saying, well, I don't know, I guess you can't get it, he would try again in a different way, and always keep coming into saying, it's not about the student, it's about the teacher. Well, I think the teachers, and I think this is a sign of a health of any school too, is the teachers gravitated into this school because of what it is and how it does what it does. And I think, they all share this idea that yes, it's important to be curious and to follow your curiosity, but that students need tools to help them in that as well, and to really, let's start with the fundamentals. And so there are some schools that you would never see a classroom arranged with desks in rows and the teacher teaching at the front of the classroom. And certainly at this school, not every class looks like that on any given day, but sometimes they will teach that way because there is a time for all things. And I think that's what the staff shares, is that there is a time for, going out and exploring the world with your hands, and there's another time to sit quietly and listen to somebody talk about something, or to sit and work through a problem and to have somebody sit next to you and help you work through that problem. And I think the teachers share that idea that, let's start with the basics and then go from there. And they also believe, I think, in the idea that the school really works ahead as kids are able. So they'll tell you that most kids are working sort of a year ahead even, and that's because there's this belief that let's not, once we've mastered something, let's not stop, let's keep going. And if the kids are ready, let's keep moving along. And certainly they do, because they don't want the kids to get bored. I think that's what Jana said to me at one point, if you go too slow, kids can get bored. And so let's just keep moving at their pace. The pace is described by them. But again, there's no rule that says you have to stop because this is grade 3 and that other material is grade 4. They'll very willingly continue working ahead. There isn't an academic stream. And I think if you look at the people that graduated from the school, they've gone on to so many different things. And again, that's a great testament to the school. There are schools that every kid seems to want to go to U of T for engineering, and I'm not sure that's a good sign. It's better to say, look at where all these kids have gone. And that's the case here. So a real signature event, if you ask anybody, what do they like? You often do this. I say, there are events in the life, the calendar of a school, and what's the one that you like the most? And invariably, whether you're talking to a teacher or a student, they say International Cafe. And it's a day, the kids, they spend quite, I think, a couple months. I mean, preparing for these things. There's a lot of lead time, and each class chooses a country, and then they learn about that country, and then they build things. They build sets. They learn about the cuisine. They learn how to cook the cuisine, and then they present their country to the school on this one day when they call it the International Cafe. Then the students travel through the school, visiting all these different countries, and it's such a great event because it brings so many different things together. Some kids will do a dance or something, or do some sort of performance of some kind, whereas the kids that are involved in, again, painting the sets or painting the posters that they have to advertise the country that they're being. And it's just a very exciting thing. It's bringing all the disciplines together in a very creative way. So some schools have, again, these kind of full-blown character education curricula, character development programs, and they really focus on character, as well they should. I think this has to be an important aspect of any kid's education. We learn the curriculum, but we also learn how to work with other people, and how to be in the world, and how to be ethically in the world. Prestige doesn't have something that you can point to and say, there is your character development curriculum, and there's the person who leads the character action thing. But values are really very much a part of it. And as Olga said, when she started the school, she wanted kids to be polite. And she uses these words that I think we shy away from now. We wouldn't say, let's be polite. We would say, let's more be ethical. But that's what she means. She wants people to behave well with each other, enjoy each other's company, and to understand everybody as their own person, and to be kind in these things. And the vice principal, Yana Abramov, is the same. She talked about the kids walking through the hallways and saying, hi, Miss Yana, and hi, Miss Olga, and saying hi to each other and greeting each other at the beginning of the day, and being polite in the hallways. And she called them, I thought was great, she said all those little big values. And I think that's absolutely true. We can talk about great things like, being stewards of the environment or something, but it really begins with saying hello to the person in the hallway. And again, I love that she says those little big values. So they really permeate the culture of the school, and they're really encouraged. And if some kid isn't maybe being as kind as they can be, they'll be corrected very gently, but they will be. And kids just are, you get that sense as you walk through the school. If you walk into a classroom, for example, this isn't true of every school, but if you walk into a classroom like I did, a number of classrooms, and say, how are you? And they're just very open and very talkative in a calm way, and you just get a sense that that's how they are with each other as well. I just think that the thing that stuck with me most was when I said, what do you share? And this girl in the front row said, we're smart. And I just love that, because, and it wasn't, if you'd been there to see it, you would have known it wasn't sort of an egotistical sort of thing. It was just being honest. And she was right to be honest. And by the same token, the students would talk about the skills of other students. If somebody's really good at dance or something, they're willing to let other people have those successes. And I think that's very important. And so that's the thing that really struck me. And I really think that is absolutely important when people go to a private school. Is it a place where the kid is going to be challenged? Yes. To be better, to learn more. But are they also going to be challenged to see themselves as part of that milieu and to understand that they're smart? This feature review has been published as a book, and it's also available online at ourkids.net.